Okay, so to begin our lesson for today, I'd like to share with you the reading that was offered to us in Unity's Lenten booklet, Fasting and Feasting, that was written for today, this Palm Sunday for 2020. It is excerpted from the book Angels Sing in Me, the James Dillett Freeman Memorial book. And the reading offers, "There was one who showed us what we all might be. He did not so much tell us what our lives should be like. He lived the life that we might live. The one we all might be had faith in other people. He saw in them potentialities that others overlooked. He knew them to be capable of more than they themselves thought. He inspired sinners to become saints, social outcasts to become public benefactors, weaklings to become towers of strength. He changed common fishermen into fishers of men. The one we all might be saw through life's imperfections, saw through sickness and doubt, through poverty and fear, through hatred and pride, even through death. And he called forth wholeness, faith, joy, love, and life. He showed us what life might be, lived to its utmost of its possibilities. He showed us what a person might be, who held to the highest and best in himself. How hard we find it to love one or two persons, yet he showed us it is possible to learn to love all. How many hours we have wasted in resentment, yet this one showed us that it is possible to live free from hate. He knew how much a loving heart is worth. He had a sense of right values. He was able to judge not by appearances, able to put first things first, able to see how much more important than material treasures are the treasures of heart and mind. He saw people as they are, flesh and blood creatures with physical needs and desires. Not once did he suggest it will be better for your soul if your body suffers, so I will not help you. Those who were sick, he healed. Those who were hungry, he fed. He knew that love does not exact pain payments as the price for spiritual growth. This is no man of sorrows, though he wept, though he suffered. His was no tragic life. Even his death was not truly tragic, for how quickly the darkness of Calvary was wiped away in the light of Easter morning. The energy released by the overcoming he made at his death is still flooding 2,000 years later into millions of lives. That was a story about someone staying on purpose, someone who didn't allow anything to stand in his way, someone who was clear about what it was his to do in and with his life, someone who stayed focused on life, even knowing his would end before week's end. And this is a story offered to us on this holy day of Palm Sunday, to remind us of the importance of our paying attention today to this life, our life, to not focus so much on its end, but rather to consciously live it to its fullest extent while we are still here. Now, if Jesus could come back into the world today, I think one of the questions he would most likely be asked the most was, or would be, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? You told us we would be able to do it too, but give us some help here. How were you able to do all that you did? What did you do to overcome, rise above the challenges you encountered? How was it that you stayed so focused, so grounded in your spiritual nature nearly 100% of the time? Well, here's a possible answer that he might offer to us. It's one I created after I read through an email that I had placed into my lesson reference file over a year ago. And it was written, an article in it was written by the editor of Unity's Daily Word magazine, and it was about Palm Sunday. And what I gleaned from what she had to offer was that Jesus might answer our questions of how he was able to do all that he did by saying, I faced the fear, I stayed true to my mission at hand, and I did what was mine to do without needing anybody else's approval. So let's take a look at that possible answer a little bit closer to see if we might be able to become, living modern day models of all that it offers. So in this Lenten season, when we are telling this Easter story, Good Friday and Easter Sunday tend to get most of the spotlight. I mean, if you're going to ask anybody what the Easter story is, their answer would probably be along the lines of, it is a story about the death and the resurrection of Jesus, which of course it is, in part. A year ago, Palm Sunday, I spoke about one of the lost days of the story. Last year, we visited with Holy Saturday, the time in the tomb. And this year, it's Palm Sunday. And part of its story is that of facing our fear. So what kind of fear do you think Jesus might have had to face and overcome when it came time to him to make the decision as to whether or not he was going to make his trip into Jerusalem? You can think about, well, he probably, knew that there would be throngs of people, just throngs of people waiting to see him and shout their praises to him, calling him their long-awaited Messiah, which he never wanted to be and never claimed for himself. He could have maybe thought about how the area itself was in the midst of a political conflict, how the authorities there were very nervous about him and the growth of his teachings and influence and how big and widespread they had become. He could have been listening to his disciples who were very afraid and begged him not to go, so afraid of what might happen, so afraid of what sort of trouble might arise for him if he were there. But the Gospel of Luke says of Jesus, his face was set toward Jerusalem. So in other words, he was not going to be dissuaded. And that determination becomes even more powerful for me as I think about the one fear, potential fear, that had nothing to do with the crowds or the authorities or the politics or the fears of other people all around him. And it's the fear, personal fear of dying. Jesus knew that with the first step he would take toward Jerusalem, he would literally be moving one step closer to an inevitable death just a few days away. And yet somehow he faced any fear around that, and he stayed on purpose. How did he do that? Well, I almost missed a really good opportunity to share some insights around answering that question. On Friday, just a couple of days ago, I woke up, and basically 6+ days out of 7 a week, I have a habit of just staying in bed when I first awaken, and I read 3 emails that come in overnight. They are 3 emails I get every day that are filled with either prayers or meditations or inspirational readings of some sort. And so Friday, I reached over, got my phone, I opened up my email, and you can see the kind of the subject lines before you actually click and open the email. And so I saw my email that I get from Richard Rohr, I've spoken of him before. He's the founder of the Center for Action and Contemplation out in New Mexico. And in big black bold letters, that email said, "You are gonna die." And so needless to say, it wasn't the morning inspiration I was expecting to receive on Friday, but I clicked and I read on. And what Richard did was provide some history around death itself and the fear that is often present. He noted how death, really in any form, is often perceived as this great enemy of humanity. How so many of us will do or go to great lengths to try to avoid it or delay it. Some may even step into that area of denying it. We project in ways that say we are not ready to die. We're not ready to die yet, not until we have truly lived. And to that, Richard offered, ironically, people who touch upon real life are the ones who can also let go of it. It is the people who have not yet begun to live who fear death the most. And I think the energy of this is very present in our lives. Fears are in the air right now in many different ways for many different people as we live in the midst of this COVID-19 experience. And these fears are very real because this virus has given us a brutal reminder of our own mortality. And then the mortality of our family members and our colleagues and our friends and our loved ones. But instead of allowing the virus to lead our lives, we can take the lead and just allow it to come along for the ride until it's time to go on its way. And that lead can be found in the legacies of our ancestors who practiced various forms of initiation ceremonies. That was all part of their particular culture. And Rohr called them genius. He said these ceremonies were genius, first, for the way in which the centerpiece of the ceremony was always a ritual symbolic of death and resurrection. And also genius for the ways in which these ceremonies would also include moments of revealing the truth about pain, revealing the truth about death. And these revealings were done into a very sacred space, a sacred space where all the participants felt safety and not fear. And as a result, Richard said, now pain is no longer a scary unknown, an unfortunate mistake, something we must change, but maybe an entryway, an entranceway. As Eckhart Tolle says, you don't need to be a Christian to understand the deep universal truth that is contained in the symbolic form in the image of the cross. Before such transformative images, the worst things can become the best things. See, Jesus understood transformation. He was able to see that his death, his physical death, that was really the ultimate encounter of the sacred. And if we can face any fears we might have about our own death, and instead see it as being an end to this physical existence, and also the ultimate encounter with spirit, Rohr contends that we'll then be free to live, often for the first time outside of our head and our fear. Then life itself, in all its depth and beauty, becomes the unquestionable gift. So perhaps one of the gifts that COVID-19 is bringing to us is this opportunity to experience our own form of personal initiation ceremony. A time where we just begin to face any fears we may have, any at all, that arise in multiple or can rise in multiple areas of our lives, and just let them come along for the ride as we stay focused on living life in recognition of the sacred gift that it is and the extraordinary beauty that it still has to offer. See, in time, I think that these feelings of fear, they're going to get bored with that kind of life, and they're going to choose to just go on their merry way. The second and third elements or parts of my imagined answer, from Jesus as to how he was able to do all that he did, they actually go hand in hand. They intertwine, very nicely, because they are that Jesus stayed true to his mission, and he did what was his to do without needing anybody else's approval. So let's approach this first by just recognizing how quickly life can change. And let's think about that in terms of this story of Jesus's journey into Jerusalem. Day one, the crowds are there as anticipated. They're cheering, they're waving, they're shouting, Hosanna. And by day 5, those very same people are shouting, crucify him. Life as he knew it on Sunday looked very different come Friday. What came to me as I thought about how life truly can just turn on a dime, change on a dime, as they say, was a day that I view as the one that life as we had known it to be experienced such a change. And that was Wednesday, March 11th, not quite 4 weeks ago. See, the prior Sunday, March 8th, we were all out at 5 Mile. We were at the church. We were having our Sunday celebration service. We were hugging and laughing and sitting right next to one another and passing our food and sharing in refreshments. But then Wednesday, things started to change. They got a bit more serious. See, first thing in the morning, we all wake up and we wake up to a message from, someone who is just so beloved by so many people all around the world, actor Tom Hanks, telling us that he and his wife Rita have the COVID-19 virus. And then later that same day, an announcement is made that not only do 2 professional basketball players in this country also have the virus, the National Basketball Association immediately suspended their entire season. By the end of the day, Thursday, the NCAA March Madness tournament was canceled. On Friday, Major League Baseball, U.S. Soccer, Major League Soccer, and the National Hockey League all suspended their seasons. It was a turning point, and it turned on a dime. And you don't have to know anything about sports. You don't have to like sports in order to have felt the whiplash effect and the subsequent reverberations that those announcements and those decisions and those actions rendered throughout this country and beyond our borders, for sure, to reverberate around the world. Now, even so, throughout his life, when things took such a turn for Jesus, he did what he'd always done. He stayed true to his mission at hand. See, throughout his life, he took actions without any concern for what any others had to say. Also knowing that it would draw attention to him, and not always of the positive kind. He turned over merchant tables in the temple. He raised Lazarus from the dead. He went on to perform healings and other miracles. He taught a radical message about God and about us. He challenged the political systems. He challenged the social systems and so forth. He kept attracting the crowds without a single worry or concern. And he kept this focus and commitment to what was his to do, even when things shifted so drastically for him in Jerusalem. He didn't spend his time there trying to convince Judas not to betray him. He didn't waste his energy trying to explain himself or defend his actions once he was arrested. He didn't fight back when he was commanded to carry his own cross to Calvary. And then even on the cross, he kept on teaching us about the oneness that we share with each other, teaching us about compassion and about forgiveness and about love. He stayed true to what he knew was his to do, and he did it as he moved through his ultimate challenge. He did it until he exhaled his final breath on this earth. The one we all might be. As I contemplate this Easter story this year, I think that we entered into our metaphorical Holy Week experiences ahead of what the calendar tried to dictate to us. You see, I think our Holy Week started on March 8th, the beginning of a week in which life as we knew it, in a sense, died. And by the end of that week, we were well on our way to making our way into the tomb, where I think we all are right now. I think we've already faced a whole lot of fears. And I think we have put forth a valiant effort to remain true to our mission and what is ours to do, nonetheless. See, our campus doors, they're sealed, they're locked shut. But the true church, you and me, well, here we are, and we're still going strong. Meetings, and classes, and small group ministries, and coffee hours, and training sessions, and fellowship have simply shifted into one of the greatest gifts that we have right now, which is this virtual platform. See, we're not living in fear. We're acknowledging it. And we're just saying, come along if you want, but we are going to continue to call upon the very principles that Jesus taught us in order to face it and overcome it. See, we and so many people all around this world are finding new ways to breathe new life into values such as integrity and love and compassion and service and being spirit-led in all that we do. There's a point in this Easter story when you see what might be the most authentic expression that Jesus ever offered to us. It's something that we all might be feeling now and again these days, or at other times in our lives as well. See, it's the point in the story when he admitted out loud, just shouted out loud how forsaken he felt. Forsaken by life, forsaken by those he had trusted, forsaken by his God. Now for him, it didn't take long for him to refocus, to remember the truth of his sacred wholeness, to remember once again that he was not and would never be forsaken. Perhaps that's his most powerful modeling of the way we all might be. So if, or maybe it's when, you find yourself believing that that's not possible for you, the times when you might feel forsaken and alone, just remember that the title to our lesson back on March 8th, the first day of our Holy Week, was "You Are Not Alone." And together, we are moving toward an awakening to new life and an awakening to a new and so much better world. God bless you all.
Thank you, Reverend Eileen.
Okay, so with that love, that overcoming, wonderful love of God just alive in our hearts this morning, we move into our time of offering for this week. I want to express my gratitude for all of the financial support that we received over the course of this past week. And I continue to ask, as you are able, for your continued financial support of all that we continue to offer as we stay true to our mission at hand. And so this morning, as we bless each other's offerings, I've got in my hands here our monthly generosity check for April, and it's going to go to our Great Lakes Unity region. And so if you have a check right there, or you just want to hold your offering in your heart, if you're going to go online perhaps later, I just ask that you hold it in your hand or your heart as I offer the words to our offertory blessing for today. And what we know is that God is my source, and I give generously of my abundance in all forms. I live a consciousness of prosperity, and I joyfully step into the flow of giving and receiving. I believe that every moment offers a gift, one to give or one to receive. And I give thanks for the prosperity in my life, and I celebrate the unlimited possibilities present in every moment. And so it is. Amen.